So in Advanced Steel, I'm just going to take a look at the Graitec wall mounted railing. So you come into the palette here and you select it under this icon available here. It works with points and lines. My preferred approach is to use a line. So I'm just going to select a primary baseline here for it and just bring one in quite quickly just to show you what it brings it in as a primary arrangement. This macro will create the wall rail elements and the brackets associated with it. So I'd actually just pop down into this sub tab here first of all, and I would actually change the horizontal alignment, and this will flip it from the left to the right. And also I'm going to change its base level. Now at the moment you'll probably notice that it's coming on the actual baseline that we actually drew, and that's because it says base. But if you wanted that to align with, for example, the top of the tube, if you change this in here, you'll see obviously the reference changes to the top of the tube in the little dialog image that we have here. And if we just change that to a front view in the model, we can obviously see now it's aligned with the level of the line here that we put, and obviously the offset here. One of the other things to note is obviously you can see that it's obviously used the baseline that we'd set. So obviously be aware that obviously where you set your baseline out from, and if you've got any thicknesses of stringer or landing elements or a physical gap back to your required wall element or concrete face or anything else that you're trying to align it to. So you saw me sort of pick the line there, and so obviously the first question is probably how did you get to the line? So all I did was actually draw a line up the side of the staircase and around the landing using the internal edge, actually, because it gave me some nice corners to sort of fix to, and sort of map that all the way around, and then I sort of move that up to the appropriate heights required. Obviously may be different between the inclined sloped element to the level elements around the landing. Did a bit of basic 2D to trim them together, and that gave me this sort of blue outline. And then realizing obviously that I need to offset that to get to back to my retaining wall or my face of my brick wall, concrete wall, whatever it is. I then used just 2D offset command here and offset that to get fundamentally my magenta lines that you see here in the model as well. So yes, it did take a few minutes just to do some setting out, but I did get to what I needed quite quickly, and then I sort of come in and enter the macro from that using the line element. I don't need a wall, so I just need to obviously pick the lines that I want to use. So what you would do is you just sort of come in here and just pan round the model, select obviously the various line elements associated with the wall railing. Personally, I do tend to try and do these in order as if I was creating a rail sort of going up the stair. And obviously, and then when I finish that, you do get an option to select it to connect something to. I don't tend to use that personally. I think if you were bolting into maybe inside a steel container, for example, or a steel arrangement, then you might want to do that. So again, sort of remembering what we started with before, the first things I would do is just come over and change the horizontal alignment and just flip it over to the left side as it changes in the macro. And obviously I would align with the outer edge to drop it down to the right height. So when it's done that, we can sort of just pop back to the wall connectors tab here, and we can sort of start to come into the dialog here and see how this is affecting what's going on. So similarly, if you've seen anything we sort of done before, this sort of accesses the profile database of Advanced Steel, and obviously you can come in and affect a size change. And I'm actually changing the bracket arm here in the macro. I'll just change it from a flat to a round bar. And it's obviously drawing it as a poly beam, so it's making it as one element, which people who make these from scratch would probably do that. And obviously you have another couple of offsets that you can affect in these cells in here. You can change them, how it's aligned, etc. That actually changes the alignment to the rail. How it's sort of put there. So if you put vertical, it actually change these elements to be vertical, so they're not perpendicular to the rail. It's especially effective, obviously, in a sloped rail. Obviously for this experiment, I'm just going to put them back to aligned. So you just see them flip back again there, as you see them flip back on the rail. The other thing to note while we're under wall connectors is obviously the positioning, and you'll see it sort of work them out, and they're based upon the setting out in each element. So we start to see use of the tree technology inside the dialog here. So this is all the segments. So this, if you change it in here, it'll affect every single segment. And the reason it's using segments is because the railing is set by segments. If you set it to total length, then you can affect the bracket distribution considering the whole body length of the railing. I probably do tend to do it by the segments personally. You can also affect the definition, projected horizontal or sloped aligned. Now in this case, I'm actually just following it up the slope. So the measurements are going up the incline, and obviously around the level, they're level anyway. So I'm going to leave that there in this case. If you did want to change a particular segment, you could come in and select that segment, and then you can affect a change by changing this measurement in here, which will change the start or end distances depending on what you require. Similarly, there is options to copy from other segments as well. So you just sort of hover over the item and right click with your mouse and it will come up. So you can use that functionality as well. The spacing control can be by number or by distance. I've just let it do it by distance, to be honest, but you can affect that and change that as well. So in here, and also you can move individual brackets separately if you want to select there and put a value into this table down here. So for example, you might have an overall scheme, and I don't know, it may be one particular bracket may be clashing with a steel column that's in the structure, that's obviously where the wall's built between. So you may need to just adjust that bracket to enable you to miss that, and obviously come in and align to the wall element itself to give you the fixture that you need. So just carrying on with the connectors really, so popping down to the connectors tab, and obviously at the moment we have a rectangular plate, and that's controlled by the plate type in here. So we can change this to a circular type. And depending on this, you need to make sure, so like you're in all segments here, so it changed them all to circular plates. But if you want to start to affect anything, I would go under all segments. And typically you would have them all the same, I would imagine. So we can come in here, we can change the bolt size, you can set an anchor. So if you've got an anchor that you use commonly, you can put that in. Similarly, you can now start to control the number of bolts or holes available within your particular bracket. So here I'm just adjusting that setting, and we can now see we've got 3 in there. If you did just want to do holes, you can just actually come into this tab as well. And obviously we're affecting these changes within the whole railing itself. You can change the plate thickness if you so wish as well. You can change that in there. So this is, I guess, if people actually make these, but a lot of people will actually purchase these. So we'll come on to those in a minute. This is controlling how it's fixed, you know, the cut back to there. You'll see that several times, cut or aligned. Some people will always cut it square, or they might cut it sloped. And you can change this as a variable in here. You can affect how it's doing the inner cut size. Again, there's certain elements to be grayed out because obviously we don't have any connectors available in here. We're not connecting it on with anything else. So let's just stick with the wall rail connector, and let's just come back to the initial first tab here. And in here you can see an element called a special part. If you toggle that, it will actually use a special part that's stored within the Graitec special part manager. In this case, we put some samples in here so that you can actually use this. And you can obviously change the size of these depending upon the tube element you're actually selecting. So you can change that drop down and it will change the arrangement there. And for those of you familiar with the term, it's using a little saddle in there. So that's because it says it's bolted, but you can actually do a welded type. So that'll take the saddle part of this out and just leave it as a welded connector. So that's if you're buying it in as a shop bought item. People do tend to do that with wall rail brackets. They do tend to buy a standard bracket and use them. And then obviously it can be quite easy to just position those and set those up within the dialog, and obviously that will affect some of obviously the settings within the connectors. Certain elements of that will become grayed out. You'll see these tabs are not available because obviously you don't actually need them because everything's been controlled inside there and set up within the special part manager. The other parameters about obviously setting those out, just to pop back about the positioning, that's all still active, just to remind you of that. So here we can see that now. So let's just take a view now. So obviously change our attention to the actual hand railing itself. Obviously you can select the tube and change how it works in here as well. We already sort of set up the alignment. But one of the things you might want to look at is the ending type. So again, you see the Graitec tree technology in here. So depending on what you want to do, so at the start we're going to use a drop down in here, and we're going to use a feature that we have. It's called return to wall. This is very similar to how we do it in our other macros that we have. So here I'm just going to toggle the alignment so we can see the return is going to pop back over to the right side from the left side. I can affect quite a nice feature here, the gap to the wall. I can introduce a little gap in there if I want to, so that'll actually shorten it back slightly on the tube in there. I can change the arrangement if I so wish, how I want to do the corner. So this bit could be mited for it, so it could be bent in this corner, this element here. And obviously the return might be mited, so these are available within the drop down as well. I'm just going to come back into here. I just want to change caps. So again, you can affect this depending on which branch of the tree. So at the top level, I'm actually going to turn all the caps on. So I put the cap on the start detail at the bottom, and I'm just going to change the depth for that. Sorry, plate thickness to 5 millimeters, and then obviously that has influenced also what's going on at the top of the stair. Though we haven't really looked up here. On the wall rail, we can see there now there is a cap plate in place. I've decided not to put any ending type on it. I'm just going to let it come out straight. So the other bit to look at is obviously at the moment all this is it may be welded together, but it's probably all separate sort of elements. So you'll sort of see all the elements there, but they're all separated. So what you can do is you can come back down into the connections, and under here there's a little subtab that says handrail to handrail. And at the moment, depending on where you are in the tree, you could change these individually at each individual corner, how you want to do this. So for example, we could come in and we could affect corner 2, and we could actually change it to a bent end. So when you do that, these two cells become available. You see grayed out there, and you can actually influence this. You can actually add a little bit of element in here. So maybe you want to use something from your bending machine. Do it this way, so you can actually create this as a formed end. And you're probably not seeing a lot of change in the dialog, but you'll start to see a change in the macro. So that's the piece of tube before it. This is the actual element going around the corner. So now it's got a bit of an extension on each side. And if you wanted to, you could actually merge that with the previous rail. So now the horizontal section that you see there will become merged into the corner piece. So that'll become one element. So similarly, you could sort of set this up and use that to join the rails together. And you could do this individually. So you could actually come back into this one here and go merge with previous rail there and merge with next rail. And obviously it'll now join all that together to make it into one continuous rail. Now, depending obviously on how you can actually manufacture these yourself or buy them in, you may wish to do that. So you can do it individually, or you can come up into the top level. Now you just see that the dialog's changed. That's because there's it's detected a multiple entry in there, so the cell's blacked out. So you just need to toggle this. So we're just gonna toggle them off for a second, and then you just need to reset them all at the top level of the tree. So we're just toggling that again, and what that's going to do is actually merge all the main railing elements into one. So it's going to be one complete rail. So if we were to come back into here and just click in there, we can now see that the whole railing is actually joined as one piece. So obviously that's not really practical, but you can use a combination of things. You can either individually uncheck elements as to what they're merged to, or if you so wish, you can just pop back into the handrails in here, and we have a tab called Split, and this enables us to divide up the wall rail into different elements, different sections. If you enable this, personally, I would probably use the by brackets method, because then I can sort of pick the place along the wall rail where I require this to go. So obviously here we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's just split it past the fifth bracket here. So if we put a check in the box there, we'll now see that this inclined rail will have a short piece of straight level rail on it, and then a split to the next element associated with it. If you don't make any entry in the other field in the cell, you'll see that it's actually right by the bracket. So it's always good possibly to just make that go slightly past the bracket. I'm just putting a nominal figure in. And now if we look at that again, we can see that that element is obviously split there. And obviously you can carry on round, so around the actual wall rail itself. So we're sort of there. So we're at number 5. So obviously 6 and 7. So you could just put a small piece in the corner if you wanted, just to get round the corner, and you may wish to split that there. And again, you'll probably may wish to put a bit of a different distance in there. So for example, we put 200 millimeters in there. So now we're round to there, and then similarly you can sort of carry on. You could go right round to the next bend. So so we're on to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we go round to number 11, and we just again check in the box there. Just give it a chance to obviously change. Maybe we go back to a 100 millimeter distance now. So now we're at this position here, and we're split there. So now we can sort of follow it up to the top, and we sort of scroll down into here, and we sort of pick the next available one that we would need, and again enter a figure in here. So with that, so now we're sort of at that point there. So maybe we just want to come around the corner. So maybe we go to 1921 maybe. So obviously the sequencing of this and the splitting of this obviously depends on how you are physically going to install the rail on site. So how you would actually decide how you would assemble this, whether you start from the top or the bottom, and which way the slip joints work. If you want to, you can introduce a small gap in there as well. So there is you can, I'm just going to put a 2 millimeters gap in there so you can actually see it. If I zoom in, I'll just let it work that out for all those. So in there's a very, very small gap between the two sections there. I don't know if you can actually there we are. You can just see that in there. So to quite quickly, we've got the main rail together. You can sort of merge the ending on as well, because that is actually separate. So I'm just going to go back to that. So my handrails ending, so I obviously set the ending type. I'm in the start position in the tree, and there's a little checkbox in there that says merge end, and that will get me to the straight bit actually. So the straight bit will be merged, and I've also got my miter cut there as well. So again, I just wanted to mention that it depends on what you set and turn off, you will find certain cells are grayed out within the macro. So don't be alarmed if you see that. It's because obviously very typical in advanced steel, something else is probably controlling that. So don't be too worried about that if you see it. Again, remember you do have the access to the tree structure, so if you do want to change anything, you can actually change it in here. So if you did want to split the rail up slightly differently than what you did before, you could do that as well, using those elements rather than using the split arrangement. So with that, you can quite quickly see it's quite quick to put a wall rail in and do it right away around the stair, and then just sort of sit in the dialogue and alter the various settings to achieve what you require. And if you make use of the Graitec Special Part Manager as well, you can actually make your wall rails brackets quite quickly because they're already stored in a library from where you bought, obviously set up to where the type you purchase. I hope that helps you with some guidance into a very quick walkthrough of the wall rail macro from Graitec. Thank you for watching.
Greytec.